Hey everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I'm going to be doing a little project with the Going in Circles 2x4 die. That's the die you see right here. Now this die you can use alone on your layout, but it also can work with the charmed die. I have the charmed 4x6 die here. It could also work with the charmed 2x4 die as well. So I'm just going to show you how you can use the Going in Circles die. And as you can see, I have the charm die in the center, and the Going in Circles will go on both sides of that die. So instead of using the 2x4 charmed, I'm using the Going in Circles in its place. And I want to talk about the photos I use. So you want to make sure for the center part of the charm die that your subjects in your photo are right in the center and they can fit in that space because there's the curves there. I didn't want any of us to get cut off awkwardly, so I found a photo of people where they could fit right in that middle there. I just put down a decorative photo, and I actually cut the photo, or excuse me, I didn't cut it. I printed the same photo twice to make a fun border that'll go across the charm dies and the Going in Circle. Plus, the Going in Circle has that center section, and I'm going to try out placing a couple photos here. I wanted to show more photos from this day. Alright, now that you have been introduced to the dies, let's get started. To use these dies, you will of course need a die machine. This is the Sizzix Big Shot. It is one of my favorites. Right now I'm just going to cut with the 4x6 charmed die. If you've never used this die and you're not familiar with it, you can click on the top right corner here and that'll take you to a tutorial of the charmed dies. And so I recommend that if you've never used this die. So I saved this outline piece here, or I call it the frame piece a lot of the time. I don't need these little extra pieces, so I'm going to just discard them. Now I'm going to cut with the 2x4 Going in Circles die. You will, or at least for the design I'm doing today, I will be cutting this twice. Basically all you need to get is a piece of cardstock. I used the same color as it did with the 4x6 charm die. And the cardstock needs to be a little bit bigger than the die itself. And then I roll it through the machine. You may notice that I have the die in at an angle. That's because we find that the machine cuts these dies better when the dies are in at an angle. And I'm just gonna take out those little pieces. I won't need those. I need that little frame piece or outline piece that sits within the die itself. If it does get stuck, you can use a sharp pair of tweezers and poke it through one of the corners, and then your little die piece will pop out just like that. So now that I have the outline or frame pieces, I'm going to cut the tiny little inside parts. Well, they're not tiny, but they are very small. So here I have the charmed die, and I want to cut these little pieces, and so I didn't want to cut one large piece of pattern paper because I felt like that would be a waste, so I cut two smaller pieces of paper. In this case, I have the die facing up because it's easier for me to tell where I can lay down these pieces I just cut through, whereas if I had the die facing down, it's a little bit harder to figure out where to place your pieces. So if putting the die face up is easier in my opinion, if you have little pieces of paper you want to cut rather than one large solid block. On the Sizzix machines, it really doesn't matter which way you cut your die. It can be face down or face up. Alright, I have my tiny pieces, and now I'm going to put this one aside and bring back the Going in Circles die. I'm going to do the same thing. Right, let me grab it here. So there's these tiny little pieces on the bottom and top of the die. And I just need a couple sheets of little papers. These are extra paper pieces. Some of the other inside pieces from the 4x6 charm die. And I figure I can just cut them in half and use them on the Going in Circles die. So don't automatically, always throw away those extra pieces. You can reuse them for other pieces of your layout. Alright, I'm rolling through the machine here. Again, I have the die face up because again, it's easier to see where to place those little pieces of paper. And now I'm just going to take these little tiny parts and that's all done. Now we have to glue the outlines on the grid paper. I do have a piece of cardstock here just so I don't get any glue on the table or on my photos. It's very annoying to get glue on your photos. And I'm using the Herma Dotto Re-positionable glue. Re-positionable glue is really important because sometimes you get the dies on there a little bit crooked or you just place it on the grid lines wrong. So re-positionable glue is very important with the Mosaic Moments dies. And basically I'm just lining the charm die up in that left corner and placing it on the grid. And again, if you have not been introduced to this die before, go check out the tutorial for the charm dies. So when you glue it down, there's a lot of different ways you can glue down the dies. This is what's easiest for me because this is the Herma Dotto dispenser is something I always have handy, and I just kind of roll it with my finger a little bit and then press it down on the corners and on the sides of the die cut and then place it carefully on the grid lines here. So that lines up. You can see how it lines up with the charmed die right there, and it kind of looks like there's these overlapping circles. So it's a really neat design. Again, I'm using my Herma Dotto dispenser, pushing it back a little bit with my finger and placing it in the corners again and on the sides, and just get it on your die as much as possible. It doesn't have to cover the entire die cut, but as long as there's enough glue to make it attach very well to the grid paper, it's good. So I lined this one on the grid paper as well, and that is the full design of the charmed and going in circles layout I'm going to be doing. Now the next step is to cut your photographs. So I am placing my charm die so my photograph is right in the middle there. Alright, and so I have it placed carefully on the machine. I know my photo's sticking out there, but I won't need that part of the photo, so I don't mind if it gets bent up because I'm going to throw it away anyway. Or you can cut it with scissors, which is probably the better choice to do actually. Might go through your machine a little bit easier if you trim it down. So, like I said, don't need that part. Now, you don't want to have your die ever sticking out because if you have your die roll through the machine like that, it'll ruin your die. So, photos, like I said, doesn't matter. They bend very easily. You can throw them out if they happen to be too long, but dies, don't ever let your die stick out more than where the plate is going. Alright, so that middle piece was pretty easy to get. Now I'm going to cut with the going in circle die. Now I'm going to have part of this photo go into the 4x6 charmed die as well. And I'm going to line it up right into the edge of where I need to cut. So I don't need it to go all the way to the end of the whole die, because really I just need those inside parts. So I'm just lining it up at the edge of the inside part I need. Take your time and be very careful if you need. A lot of times I like to use washi tape to make sure my photo is very well in place on where I want it, the die to go on the photograph. So I have the going in circles die on the very end of the left side of my photo here. And I'm going to roll it through the machine. And you want to pay attention to where you're cutting. Like I said, if you're going to have the photo overlap into the two different dies. I did not have the dies cut through at the same time because the 4x6 die kind of stuck out off the edge of the Sizzix plates, but if you had really long plates, that would work out much better. So if you have longer plates, I recommend cutting them through at the same time. But here, I wasn't able to, so I'm lining the charm die on the very edge of the left side of the photograph that I just trimmed off from. So this is the kind of photo where if it looks off by a little bit, it would probably be okay. But basically, I just want to, for the most part, want the photograph to look like it's lining up on the layout. So I used the going in circles die first, and then as best I can, lined up the 4x6 charmed die next to the previous cut. Alright, I am doing the same steps again, except I'm putting the going in circles die on the right side because it's going to be going on the right side of the layout. And you probably can see I used the same exact photo again. I really like mosaic moments because you're able to use the same photo again. In this case, I'm going to kind of make it look like a one long border, but because there's a piece of wood in the back, but it could also be, a floral photograph you use multiple times. So don't be afraid to print your photos multiple times. And it's kind of like your pattern paper, but you're using a photo instead. And just now I cut with the charm die, and I just need to keep this little piece on the right here for my layout. Alright, the last items I need to cut is, and this is kind of something I'm trying out, there's the center section of the going in circles die, and you can of course just use the same decorative die you're using like I was using before to fill in that space, but I wanted to try out putting in 2 other little photos. And you do want to make sure if you're using the center space that your subject was taken further away. Like here I have this photo of this, I guess it's sort of a Big Ben kind of thing at the amusement park we go to a lot, and it was far away and it was a perfect shape to fit into that space. Alright, I'm going to do it again. This is another photo where everything was kind of farther away. I just kind of wanted to show the details of the Christmas things at the park. And so I'm going to cut this second piece. And it's super easy. And of course, all you need to do is pop out the portion that is right in the middle here. So I'm going to see how it works out in the end. Now that all the photos are cut, I get to glue all the pieces down into my charm design. So this is the center photo here. That's the easiest one because it's the largest piece in the design. And then I'm going to put in the pieces of this, I guess, decorative die is what I've been calling it. It looks like little berries, and there's a piece of wood in the background. And again, it's the same photograph, and it's kind of going to look like it's one long photo, which is really neat about, like I said, the Mosaic Moments dies. I like that you can do little tricks like that. Alright, and I'm just taking my time and gluing down these little pieces. And as you can see, I left the going in circles photos attached because it makes it so much easier to glue it all down that way. So if you have little pieces, the nice thing about the photos is they don't tend to fall apart. All the little pieces stick together. Like here, you can see I kept all those little pieces together because it's much easier to glue it when they're attached on as one big piece. And then you can pull the little pieces out and stick them on your layout. So again, makes it so much easier. That is one of my tricks for those small pieces. And when you glue it down, you definitely want to make sure you get all the corners really well, because I find if you don't glue it down, they'll start sticking up. Alright, so I have that photo in, and now I'm going to put in all my little pattern paper pieces, which there's a lot of different ways you can glue them down. Again, you want to make sure you get all those little corners really well. That's the most important part of the tiny pieces, especially to glue down, at least from what I've noticed, because I find, especially on the really thin corners, if you don't glue them down, again, they'll poke up, and to me, it's very annoying. So definitely make sure you get these little pieces glued down very well. Alright, I'm almost done here. I have these 4 really small pieces to do, and again, I just use pattern paper. That's usually what's the easiest to fill in these tiny spaces, so you don't have to feel like you have to complete the whole design with all photographs, but pattern paper is a great filler. Alright, so this is almost completed anyway. I have the option to keep it like this or add in these little photos to fit right in the center of the going in circles die. So you have to decide which way you like it to look. But I really like the two little photos in there. I really wanted to show more of the details from this day, but even without those, it looks really neat. I really like how that one photo looks like one big photo on the layout. So I think I'm gonna go with this though. I really like this design, so I'm just gonna pull out the photos that were sitting in the center here and glue the two little photos down. So again, another thing I like about a lot of the Mosaic Moments dies, including this one, is there's multiple ways you can fill in the spaces, and there's no right or wrong way to do that. It's really up to you, your style, and how much photos you want to fit on a layout as well. So now my layout is completed, and I really love how it turned out. So if you love the charm dies, you definitely want to get the going in circles die, and it would be really neat too if you have the 2x4 charm dies. It would be really cool to make a border, and then it will look like you have multiple overlapping circles. So it's a really cool die. I really like this design, and I really like that you have multiple options. Again, I could have made the two decorative background photos kind of look like one big photo going across the charm die, but I opted to use the other two photos in the little going in circle spaces so I can show more about that day. So it's all really up to you. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's demo. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the going in circles die, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to our channel so you can be updated on future demos. Alright, I hope you guys enjoy scrapbooking at home, and I will see you next time.